Okay, Ham, come on, just blow my mind now. It's gonna be something weird. Like you're gonna have peanut butter on yours or something. Come on with it.
I'm like pure chaos when it comes to
I'm unsurprised.
Mr. Noodles. I put her on the stove. I boil the kettle. Throw that in.
That's right. Yeah.
Pour that over the noodles, and get that going. You know. And as I'm doing that, I see whatever's in my fridge. Throw that shit in there.
Welcome to your last podcast, the last podcast in the game, but the first you should listen to. I'm your host, Colton Simpson. And with me this week, joining me down at the other end of the table, it's Mr. Listen himself, Josh Vey.
What are you at?
And all the way over here, we have the amazing Grace Tatigian.
Hello, hello.
And last but not least, it's our resident audiophile, William Ham Clark.
Hi.
So what is your last podcast? We're a conversational podcast where every week each of us brings a topic of conversation to argue amongst ourselves and talk it out for your amusement. If you like that, be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed to never miss a new episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're feeling a bit generous or have a couple of bucks to toss our way, you can always head on over to patreon.com/yourlastpodcast and help support the show. So with all that out of the way,
Please
Ham.
give us money.
Ham, what's your topic?
My topic this week is how Shrek impacted your life. I want to know how Mike Myers playing a green ogre affected your life.
Throwing that off to anybody? Any of us chime in?
I'd like Josh to go first.
Of course you would. Of course you would. Okay, so I mean, depending on who you talk to, Mike Myers really shined in one of two things, right? Austin Powers or as Shrek, right? And we actually went and watched Shrek the other night, right? Yeah. Because it's just a movie that's kind of immortalized amongst all of us 90s kids, right? So we went back and we watched Shrek, and I can certainly say I was shocked that not only was it good, but it was fucking better than I remembered when I was a kid. That movie is amazing. That embodies everything that it was to be a youngster growing up in like late 90s and early 00s, like being a teenager in the 00s. Saucy, obnoxious humor, loads of fart jokes thrown in there.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe it. Like 4 or 5 within the first minute or two. Like,
oh yeah.
Just fart and ass humor, like right in the beginning of the movie.
It was excellent. Like you're not 30 seconds in the movie and you see a green ass with mud sliding down the side of it, right? As he takes a mud bath shower. It's excellent. So I don't know if there's any movies that are coming out now where they would go for that kind of humor, like what Shrek had. And I think the kids today are missing out. I mean, that's one of the great losses in the film industry, as far as I'm concerned, is there's no Shreks. Like, there's nothing that's that obnoxious and funny anymore. And it worked well. It was so clever. What's it called? We looked up the term where they sneak in. Like, SpongeBob was famous for this. They snuck in the adult humor.
Yeah, it's called the parental bonus. Yeah. It's when it's a children's a children's movie or TV show, and it's just when they have the adult humor in there. Yeah, it's just a parental bonus that the kids don't get at the time.
Remember when it goes to the big castle in Shrek? And he's like, oh, Lord Farquaad's castle. It's pretty big. Do you think he's compensating for something, right?
Yeah.
Sneaky. As a kid, I didn't give a fuck about that. I was just watching the movie, but if like mom or dad had been watching, they probably would have been like, oh, that's a good little side jab there.
Yeah, and when we were watching last night, there was even like a subtle blowjob joke between the dragon and the donkey.
Oh, yeah.
I said, oh, not that tail. That's my private tail.
Well, Eddie Murphy, too. Like, hey, what are you going to do here? Hey, right? Like, you didn't really know what was going to, you're going to tear it off, right? Yeah. It was pretty clever in the way that they hit it in there. You knew what was going on. But, so Ham, for you, I'll toss it back to you. I mean, it's your topic. I don't want to steal your thunder. What did Shrek do for you when you were a kid? How many times did you watch Shrek, for one? Because I'm going to put myself at like a good solid 20, 22 times, somewhere around there.
Oh, I watched it way more than that if you count like the second one, because I watched that on reruns on like shitty Bell stolen satellite for years. No, it definitely shaped my humor a lot just because Mike Myers, he's just
amazing.
He's great. Like some of his humor doesn't hold up nowadays, obviously, because like not a lot of people do like fart jokes a whole lot anymore, or
what I was surprised with when we were watching Shrek is that they were actually writing jokes. It was like a joke and a punchline, where a lot of the time with movies now, it's a lot of like referential or gag humor. It's like, I don't know, someone bumps their head, so somebody makes a comment about it. It's a lot of like ad-libbed, where Shrek was just, it was actually all written. It was very well constructed.
No.
Set up and execution.
Yeah.
It really was in Shrek.
Yeah, no, Mike Myers is like a mastercraft in writing jokes. And like you see that in Austin Powers too, not to like go off of Shrek, but like Shrek, most of the movies, except for one we won't mention, the third one, we will mention it, I guess, all hold up for the most part. And I think when you look at it, even like the soundtracks.
Oh yeah.
That's what
the
I was going to
soundtracks,
say.
like every time you hear All-Star, you can't not think about Shrek.
Yeah.
Like, I think that just shows like how like sticking that movie is for people. Like it sticks in your head.
Same thing with Hallelujah. Like I hate to admit
Yeah.
it, but Shrek is why that song is stuck in my head half the time. Like it is an amazing song, obviously. And it's got like this crazy history of it was written by this guy who drowned in a river, and then Leonard Cohen covered it. Anyways, it's a crazy story
I think
behind the
Leonard
song.
Cohen wrote it for Shrek, right?
But it's this anyways, it's got this crazy history behind it, but the reason everybody knows it is from Shrek, and that's just so ridiculous.
Like,
I was shocked when All Star came in last night. I didn't just think about how it was a joke and how it's like a big meme now. It's just it just fit Shrek. And I hate licensed music. Grace is always
I know. I was just gonna say, like, the best part about Shrek is the soundtrack, and you hate.
Oh yeah,
that.
I usually hate licensed music, but as we were watching it last night, Josh, I can't remember what song it was now. It was the one playing during the love scenes of the movie. You're just like, oh my god, this fits perfectly.
It does,
yeah. Yeah, I can't remember the
It was one of
music.
those grunge bands from like the Double O's, early Double O's. I can't remember what the song was now. But there were so many good scenes in that movie. I mean, the whole like dragon escape scene where he rescues the princess and then he darts off out down the hallway and she's like, "Where are you going?" "Well, I have to save my ass."
Yeah.
Right? And go get donkeys. It's just clever shit like that that's so dumb but good. It's the same reason why I like SpongeBob as a kid.
Did you watch Shrek a lot as a kid? Just because I know
Definitely,
because
yeah.
you're big into like fairy tales and folk tales. So I was just,
Oh, definitely. Like we had the VHS, watched that so many times. We watched Shrek 2 a lot as well.
Okay.
Because we had that on DVD, and it was one of the first few DVDs that we got. And my dad worked for a car company, and so he always had the demos at home. Like he never owned his own car. It would always be like, this is the one we're demoing, so I've got this one for the month. And they always had like the new fancy features in them. So they always had DVD players. And so if ever we were going somewhere, we had a very limited selection of DVDs to choose from. So we would always watch Shrek 2.
So you were one of those kids that got to watch Shrek in the back seat of the car.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, boy. The rest of us
yeah.
just had to wait to get home to toss her on.
That was like a $40 VHS from
Oh,
North
my
Mart
son.
back in the day. Shrek.
Yes,
Just
sir.
because it was larger than all
Yeah,
the other
it was.
VHSs, add an
Yeah.
extra $10 onto that.
Yeah.
The shipping and handling, the isolation cost.
But yeah, the music from the second one as well, holding out for a hero.
Oh, yeah.
Like Bonnie Tyler, the fairy godmother, absolutely killing it.
Yeah, when Josh and I watched it over this weekend, we were actually like, I kind of want to watch Shrek 2 now, but it was a bit late. It was like 11 o'clock at night or something.
It was like when we had the Shrek movie marathon at
Yeah,
my house.
yeah.
I don't even think I was there for the whole thing.
No,
it was
it's
great. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Shrek 3 and 4. It was my first time seeing those, and Shrek 3 was awful. I don't know what happened, but
Well, see, one of the things that I really do like about Shrek number 2, and usually sequels aren't, we haven't watched it, so it's kind of like edgy to get into it, but I loved Zorro, Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots.
He was
He
excellent.
adds such a good little dynamic to that movie as well, too, right? So I'm going to say, conservatively, that Shrek 2, good and solid, almost as good as the first
yeah,
one.
definitely.
Almost as good from what I remember, but
I was just shocked just when we were watching Shrek the other night because obviously everyone makes fun of him now, and he's an easy butt of all jokes nowadays. And I mean, it's just the franchise has been dead for a couple of years now, and he still comes up all the time. Shrek.
That's because he's so good. Like, just like as it is, it's actually a good movie. But like, ironically, it's a good movie too. I don't know. It's like everything about it like shouldn't work. It's a fucking ogre going to like It's basically like Hollywood that they go to.
Yeah,
like,
and the
their
second
kingdom's
one,
basically
yeah.
Hollywood.
The
yeah,
Kingdom of
and-
Far, Far Away.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about
yeah,
that
the
too.
references in Shrek 2 are unreal, like down to the magazines that people are reading sitting on. Like they'll have like a mock Starbucks and there's like a logo. I don't remember what it's called. It's like Wish on a Starbucks or something like
Okay.
that. And they're reading like Pork Illustrated instead of Sports Illustrated. Like the detail is unreal.
Damn it, because the detail was definitely missing from the first one when we were watching it. Their eyes are so scared.
Well,
Dead.
That's
Dead and
where you get
empty.
that's where you get the memes from, right?
Oh,
So-
it's so scary though when we were watching back. Like everything held up. Like the licensed music wasn't annoying. Like all the jokes were good. They still worked. It was just something behind those eyes, man. It was just
yeah.
empty.
And like the big
Emptiness.
WWE SmackDown
Oh, yeah.
fight scene in there. I was like, oh, kids
I
today.
forgot about that.
Kids today wouldn't even be like, what is going on here, right?
No, I think kids still watch wrestling.
You think?
I think that's still a thing.
Oh, I just remember wrestling was huge. Like, wrestling was always on TV. I wasn't a big fan of
Yeah, me
wrestling,
neither,
but like Rafiki coming in and doing his like butt drop on someone and smothering them out with his ass. Yes, I remember that shit. It was hilarious.
Rikishi. Not-
Rikishi, that's
I was
what
gonna say
not the
Lion
baboon from Lion King.
That's right. Yeah, same thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, just
But
same
yeah,
thing.
what would you say his name?
Rikishi.
Rikishi. That's him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, solid dude
You guys remember the Burger King toys?
Oh yeah.
for Shrek.
Or
yeah.
the sourdough burger?
I remember the sourdough. I do remember the sourdough. That was huge.
Greenberg.
I
But
don't know if it was green.
I think it was green. The bun was green, I think, when
No, I don't
No?
think so. No, I think it was just sourdough bread.
Okay,
That's
I could
all.
be wrong. I thought when I Googled it, it was green, but
Yeah.
But
No, I
yeah,
don't think
Shrek
so.
was huge. I mean, it's the biggest selling VHS of all time. It's the first movie to
DVD, isn't it? Big
Nope.
selling DVD?
VHS.
VHS.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's even more impressive.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was
Holy
VHS,
blessed.
and it's the first movie to ever win the Academy Award for animated feature. So
Yes, boy.
they made it the same year Shrek was out. So obviously,
They made it for Shrek.
for Shrek, it beat Monsters Inc. So I mean,
That's crazy.
that's
I
pretty
didn't
good.
realize that.
Yeah, pretty good.
Oh.
But see, Monsters Inc. didn't have the ass humor, as far as I know. So I mean, no contest.
Shrek was
right?
a lot more crude. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Well, Shrek has humor, has love,
Oh yeah.
Has
and
life.
It's adventurous. You know, you learn you learn a lot about life. Shrek is love.
Shrek is life.
And with that out of the way, it kind of leads pretty good into my topic because when I was watching Shrek, I thought it was going to be very nostalgic. I thought like maybe the only reason I would love this is because this was a movie that I watched in my childhood. Now I was shocked because it actually held up quite well. But there's a kind of like a trend in Hollywood and a lot of media nowadays is basically we're looking at everything from our past. We're viewing everything through rose-colored glasses. Like everything seems better if it's older. All the movies nowadays suck. Music sucks nowadays. Television shows aren't as good as they were in the 90s. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring back things that we remember from our childhood to capitalize on them. It's purely for greed. But I want to know is nostalgia, this trend of nostalgia, stifling creativity? Is it harming creativity? And ultimately, is it harming art?
Yes, is my definitive answer.
Yes.
Yes. After I watched Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, even though I remember Jurassic World being good, it was almost to the point where I'm like, why did we open the door for this
Was it
shit
worth-
again? Why did we ever open the door to ruin this universe here that it was so important to me as a kid? When even let's go back, we'll rewind to 2015 with Jurassic World.
Mm-hmm.
Good, solid movie. Not as good as JP1, but solid movie. It drew out every kid that was born in like 91, 92 to go out to the movie theater and fucking watch Jurassic Park, right? So we all went. We were going anyways. And I do remember one of the biggest criticisms that I had walking into that movie was, fuck, they took the scariest dinosaurs and made them pets. Like we went from raptors in the kitchen in the first one to raptors riding alongside a Kawasaki dirt bike.
Brofist.
Right? Like, yeah, like,
That's sick.
oh,
That's
man,
sick.
it's devastating. I remember watching that, and granted, the Rex Indominus fight at the end of that makes up for it. Good, solid fight. It was like a WWE SmackDown. It was beautiful.
Rafiki getting in there.
Oh yeah. Rafiki coming in with the atomic elbow or whatever. But yeah, no, it was it just left me with the thought of why have we started this? And then with Fallen Kingdom, I mean,
That was hot trash.
Justice Smith is like a cancer anyways when he gets into these movies. Like here's another good one that Justice Smith has ruined, and the nostalgia angle is bad enough. Pikachu Detective.
Mhm.
Detective Pikachu.
Or Detective
yeah.
Pikachu.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are they doing that? Like, why are they doing that? Is it
Because they-
solely a money grab to be like, everyone who played Pokemon back in the day, good or bad, is going to come out and watch this movie?
Yeah.
And they're right, because all 4 of us are probably going to be in the theater watching that movie.
Well, 3 of us will be
3
there.
of us will be there for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's just purely a money grab. And rather than going on that angle of just capturing something golden from the past and doing a shit poor job of packaging it up for the future, why don't you come up with something new and different? Right?
Well, what is the Pokemon nowadays for kids? Like, obviously, none of us are kids, so we don't know what's popular.
I
but-
know, like Minecraft and
Yeah, but it's not like a television show, right? Like what is popular for children nowadays? Or are they kind of just looking after, do they all love Pokemon? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I
It's a
don't
good
know
question.
either.
But yeah, in terms of Detective Pikachu, they're purely just taking our childhood, making it in beautiful CGI renditions, which I'll give them. I think the Pokemon look pretty good in the movie in terms
Most of them.
yeah, like doing like the live
I
action.
don't know.
versions of
Charizard
them.
looked like he was on the keto diet or something with the rolls hanging off
Oh,
him.
the quick weight loss on looked like Fat Bastard from
Yeah,
Austin
right at
Powers.
the end of Goldmember. Yeah.
But yeah, with a lot of the properties that come back in terms of like The Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2, I mean, I don't like the movie. Most
I
people,
loved it.
yeah, most people thought it was pretty good. But was it as good as Incredibles 1?
No, not
Yeah, so
quite
why
as
even
good.
why
but-
even bother? Like
Mhm.
with Toy Story 4 coming out, like
Yeah, that. I
like
have no
why
interest in.
bother? Now, when Toy Story 3 was coming out, I remember being very nervous saying, what's the point? There's no point to do this because they're not going to beat Toy Story 1 and 2. And in my mind, I really like Toy Story 3. So maybe with Toy Story 4 will be better, but I just don't understand why bother. Like why is Pixar focusing on just making sequels to their successful franchise rather than creating new things? If Pixar was the way it is now, we would never have Up. We would never have WALL-E. We would never have Ratatouille or any of these movies.
There is the scattered genius moment, though, because Coco is an excellent movie.
Yeah, Coco
right?
is
And
great.
as far as I know, that's not a steal or grab of
It's not,
anything
no.
similar
I think
to
it's
that.
original, yeah.
So, it's not all doom and gloom, but by and large, you are right. It's just copy paste,
Because they know they're going to make money because, like you said, Detective Pikachu looks terrible, and you 3 are going to be there, and you're going to see it.
Well, I mean, everyone's going to be there. I think Pokemon's the most successful creative like IP of all time. Like
Yeah.
video games, movies, everything. I think Pokemon is there, so it's going to make a shitload of money.
Mhm.
But yeah, in terms of nostalgia, what do you have to say about it, Grace?
I was looking at a completely different angle, and I was looking at the clothing industry.
Okay.
I worked in the clothing industry and not in retail, but at a head office for a clothing company for 3 years. And I was always seeing like what was coming out this season and what trends were being repeated. And it wasn't just within this one company, because I often had to cross-reference with other companies that were like within a similar price range, see what they were doing, kind of have an idea in general of what everyone was doing. And there was like for the last, I'm going to say probably 2 years, there has been a huge early 90s throwback.
Yeah,
And
that's
God, is it
so
awful.
true.
It's just so hideous.
Like what? What are some of these clothes? What do they look like?
Oh my gosh, just like the overalls and everything is ill-fitting, and like there's terrible patterns, and it's just I
Josh's
think it's
shoes
just
and-
it's just
Those are becoming popular, my son. They're coming back again. I'm ahead of the fucking trend there.
but I don't know, it's just all so ugly. And I mean, I'm
fanny
not
packs.
fanny packs, classic example.
Fuck off. No, they're not.
Yeah,
Are they?
yeah.
Huge. Oh my God. And not just like in,
That was good for your Game Boy back in the day, though. Slide in the Game Boy Pocket, which was ojous, and
Well,
trying
now
to get
they're-
that in there.
Now they're good for your smartphones, which are ojous.
Yeah.
Ojous, yeah, exactly.
And like not just fast fashion type, I'll get one at, I don't know, Forever 21 for $15. Like I'm talking like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, like fanny packs, and like these are super popular and they're hideous. And I'm like, your people are putting so much money into these horrible fads that we've seen them be terrible once and we're doing them again. So yeah, absolutely. I think that it's stifling creativity. And I mean, I'm not exactly a fashionista myself. This is not something, but I'm just looking at these things being so ugly and it's everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want a like a little like man purse thing. I kind of want one of those, but from like fashion to want to transition that kind of over to music.
Mhm.
So nostalgia definitely has a huge impact on music, like you can't go to like any like YouTube comment section about like, especially like rock and like hip hop
Okay.
for the most part. Or actually, you know what? I'll just say like any music genre, you'll get a lot of this. Will be like, oh man, I sure wish I was born in a different generation because the music was way better in the 80s. And you're like, please stop.
Yeah,
Like,
but
that's
Ham,
never true.
Ham, to be fair, like when I put on Serious Hits 1, there's not even voices or music anymore. It's just inaudible noises. It sounds like mating season out in Terra Nova Park or something. Like that could be a new single. So I do sort of get the justification there. You know what I mean?
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the nostalgia factor kind of killed rock because it never moved past being what it is. Like there was like the rap rock thing that happened, but like that was fucking terrible for the most part.
Well, you think it was. I thought it was pretty great. I loved Linkin
Give me an
Park.
example.
Linkin
Okay.
Park.
Yeah, that was
But-
excellent.
Yeah,
System
but
of a Down.
Yeah, but after their like first or second album, they kind of started to change and shift, and all their comment sections are filled with is I miss the old Linkin Park, or I miss the old System of a Down, or I miss the old. I'm trying to think of another rap rock band, Limp Bizkit or something.
Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine's pretty great. But no, it's not like that. I hate all of rap rock or anything like that. But like,
Yeah.
no, it definitely stifled rock music as a whole.
It's true. I never really thought about it, but rock music really hasn't evolved much since like the early to
90s.
mid 2000s. Like that's like top.
But neither has classical music or anything like that.
No.
Because in order to have a genre that's specific, like classic, you can't really merge it with too much else. Otherwise, it's
mean,
not classical anymore.
Look how
right?
much country has changed. Look how much
It's
hip
true.
hop has changed. How much rap has changed.
Country has changed a lot.
Country is
lot.
very similar to pop.
And I
now,
still
in
think
a
there
way.
actually is a lot of classical music, but it's mostly in like film scores.
Mhm.
And I do think there
Yeah.
probably is really good compositions there, but yeah, they're not stuff you'd hear on the radio, right? But yeah, in terms of music, the only example I can think of is like when we're having games night or something over to your house, what music is on? Is it modern 2018, 2017
No.
music? No, exactly. It's
No, we always put on
nostalgic
the
emo throwbacks, mid 2000s or something.
I'm pretty sure the playlist is actually called Songs for White People to Get Turnt to, which is when I learned the word turnt. But yeah, no, it's all nostalgic music. And I'm not one who ever goes out of my way to listen to anything new. I gotta say, like, I'll find, I mean, I listen to a lot of Broadway, I listen to a lot of show tunes, and like there's a very limited amount of new show tunes that come out in a given year. You know what I mean? There might be, 3 or 4 really solid ones that come out.
I just don't think with music that, say, like the newer Linkin Park stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think listening to a new Linkin Park song and hating it ruins the older stuff, or at least how you sort of feel about the whole overall thing. Whereas Fallen Kingdom, once again, with Justice Smith, has left this awful taste in my mouth just in terms of my favorite movie franchise of all time.
Well-
and it's terrible. I hate that he's even associated with it at all, right?
But it's not only about Justice Smith in terms of Fallen Kingdom ruining it. Like they take
Oh, it's bad enough without him,
Well,
yes.
they take the Brachiosaurus or the Brontosaurus there and they stand him up on his hind legs as they're leaving the island, just so we all remember, if you're a Jurassic Park fan, about the first time you saw a dinosaur on the big screen. They take the raptors in a kitchen, Lex trying to slam the doors closed, and they kind of redo that with like the elevator that goes in between the floors. Like if you're a fan of these movies, you understand what they're doing, and by putting them in a terrible movie just ruins it. Does anybody think the Ghostbusters 2015 was worthwhile to bring that back? Taking apart,
No.
yeah, like taken apart. Like obviously, it got a lot of shit because they rebooted it with a female cast, but.
That didn't even matter. It
No.
just sucked.
It was just terrible. And what they tried to do is they're just trying to capitalize on a property that we all know and recognize. In terms of when I think about this media, I always kind of wonder, why are we always looking backward? In terms of like the 80s, there's a huge 80s buzz right now with like Stranger Things, and I'm not going to shit on Stranger Things. It's not the worst thing ever, but why are we always looking backward? Why are the things that are popular, they're not actually a lot of the things that are happening now? Like even I understand like Marvel movies are pretty huge, and I understand Star Wars is pretty big, but still those are properties that have been around in Marvel's case for 100 years, almost probably 80, probably 70, 80 years. Star Wars has been around for 40. Like what is Star Wars nowadays?
They should look to the future, pardon the pun there,
Yeah.
but they should look to the future and try to come up with some new stuff. Stop digging up stuff from the past. Stop standing on the shoulders of other geniuses rather than coming up with your own stuff.
I'll argue that point, not to be like completely like contrarian to it, because I do think nostalgia is is a double-edged sword for the most part. But like to bring it back to like fashion and like music, like for like fashion stuff, like you saw like classic like Americana like denim and like jackets and a lot of classic hairstyles come back and stuff like that. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think a lot of that stuff is great.
I agree in a sense for certain things. Like trucks are like this. Right now there's a trend in the automotive market where trucks are going back to like this rectangular-ish shape, right? Like they were in the 80s and the 70s. Now we sort of actually starting to move back towards round again with the 2019 stuff. But there was a good period there in like 2014 to 2018 where a lot of cars were starting to get rectangular again, whereas they were very like round and bubbly in the double O's, right? And for people like me, I wasn't alive in the 70s or in the 80s, but I did like the way that the vehicles looked then. So there is an argument to be made that, yeah, maybe there is, it's okay for a style to look good and not have to be stuck in a timepiece, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, my thing is just like maybe we're not discovering the new styles because we're not even giving them a shot.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah. Like I understand with a truck, maybe there's only so many different ways you can go, but I kind of disagree. I think your opportunities there are probably endless. You know?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're going to definitely see some.
And I mean, I'm fine with obviously some things like style and stuff repeating itself. I think the way we dress now is probably the better than when we dressed in like 2006 with like the emo and scene style, but you know.
Disagree.
But just by and large, whenever I look at Hollywood, and obviously it's an industry I want to be in, it's just back in the 90s and early 2000s, they were always looking for new ideas. They were always, The Matrix wouldn't be made nowadays, you know, and that movie just had its 20th anniversary, and a lot of people credit it as one of the most like creative movies of the late 90s, early 2000s. So it's just, if we're not looking for new ideas and we're just always relying on things that already exist, I think it's just doing more harm than good. Don't get me wrong. When we went and saw Jurassic World, I teared up when the T-Rex left the paddock, and it just reminded me of my childhood. Like I was on the verge of tears. But it's like, is that moment really worth it when Jurassic World 2 sucks and Jurassic World 3 will probably be even worse? Should have we just left it alone, you know? Like,
there's a fine line to walk between learning what's good and what works and then copy and pasting everything. So
yeah, you know? And everything in moderation. You know what I mean?
Right.
If they had done Jurassic World and they had done just that one, you know, it would have been very different than if they had decided to make this a trilogy. You know what I mean?
But you know something, Grace? Why even bring it back if that's the case, right? Like, if that was the case, I'd almost sort of lean the other way to be like, all right, if you're bringing this back, can't we just let sleeping dogs lie rather than bringing it back for one possibly good banger movie? And I don't know if I'd be a fan of that, but I do get your point of what you're saying.
I mean, the whole point is to make money.
Yes,
obviously,
right. It's always,
and that's why.
Yeah.
And the nice thing, I guess, nice. I'm using that term loosely about rebooting old franchises or just putting out, you know, the 87th Marvel movie or something like that, is because someone who's going and pitching this to a studio who's going to put hundreds of millions of dollars into this, and they can say the last one made this much money, and they have metrics that they can go to. And so it's easy to pitch it and say, you know, have projected finances and things like that.
I have a question for you now. I know you like Beauty and the Beast, so I'm going to ask you a question. The remade Beauty and the Beast from what, 2017, 2016, whatever it was. What did you think of that? How did that hold up for you?
I did enjoy it. Do I think it was necessary? No.
No. So if you had been the boss and they said, all right, Grace, what are we doing? Are we making a new Beauty and the Beast? Or are we going to come up with the Tim Hortons adventure for our new feature film? Would you take a chance and go, let's try something new? Or would you go, let's redo the Beauty and the Beast?
I would have probably said, let's do something new. The reason I was so excited for that one, because Emma Watson was in it. I thought she was, you know, born to be Belle. I thought that was excellent. But I'm not looking forward to Aladdin. Not looking forward to Dumbo. Didn't like the Jungle Book. I think that they're pouring all this money into, and I can't imagine they're making their money back on these. Really?
Yeah, like tenfold. I mean, Dumbo, I think, did pretty bad last weekend, but I mean, a lot of these movies, they're making their money back. Lion King is going to be massive.
Oh, that'll be a fortune.
Massive. And I know, like, even Cinderella, I actually haven't seen it, but that was the one
was not great.
That was the one that started this whole trend.
I know,
right?
and it was not great.
But I know Jungle Book made a load of money, and I think Beauty and the Beast, that live action one, might be right up there in like top 10 or 15 films of all time for grossing box office. So they're not stopping anytime soon. When you're spending $200 million on a movie that we all saw in the 90s, that is when pretty much all of us will agree that the animated original is, at the very least, the same quality. I think most of us would say it's better. Why even bother? You know? So anyways, I mean, Disney is going to keep doing that. And I mean, they've been doing that the last couple of years. I just wish it was like it was in the early 90s where they were making original stuff. Whether or not everyone likes Aladdin or Hercules, I mean, most people don't really think those are the golden age of Disney. But, whether or not you think those are great movies, I just wish they'd get back to making original stuff rather than relying on live action reboots or all that. But
to get on with that, I don't think the problem is like inherently that nostalgia is bad. It's the fact that like we look back, but we're not referencing it. We're just mirroring it and repeating it again. Because like you see, I don't know, in hip hop you'll see like jazz samples or like R&B samples, gospel stuff, and like you'll see that like mixed in with like new school hip hop, or like even there's even like a lot of like scene kid like emo revival stuff going on in hip hop.
Oh yeah, and I mean a lot of the stuff I listen to, like metalcore and stuff, they have a lot of hip hop beats. They just rip beats and rip lyrics, and they'll throw it in there. Which I understand by doing that, it's nostalgic as well for a certain group of your listeners, right? I understand that. It's just I think when they kind of weaponize it, or if they only use it for capitalistic gain, which I think Disney is the big person that does this, and
they use nostalgia like a hammer. It's a hammer looking for a nail, and when it lands, it gets this emotional reaction out of you, but did it really, like you said the other night, does it really earn it? I don't really think so. It's just this big old club looking to drive a nail into a piece of board. Sometimes it hits, other times it misses the mark, and more often than not, it does more like damage than good, I think, because it soils your opinion of what you actually loved about the original franchise there. Like for me in Jurassic Park, I'd be lying if I said it doesn't take something away from the overall like magic of that whole franchise.
But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. All we need to say on it. Josh.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Well, seeing that we're sort of talking about large companies and making money and corporate greed, I chose my topic this week. My topic is basically, can a company become too large for its own good, for the good of the public? I sort of wanted to talk a little bit about this for a couple of different reasons. One is because Apple just had their big launch there, where they basically announced that they're going to fucking start selling everything from iPhones to hot dogs to Netflix and credit cards and all this stuff. And it really irks me in a way because it's not relevant diversification. And most companies, when they start doing like unrelevant diversification, they usually get creamed in it. So for example, like Virgin, everyone know Virgin, the company Virgin. So what do you know Virgin for? Phones.
Well, I also knew airplanes, yeah. Yeah,
so Virgin Airways, but they actually started as a record company from what I believe, right? So they diversified out, and they started sort of moving into like media, transportation, incorporating all that stuff. They made their mark. So eventually they diversified out in the double O's to something totally random, and I bet no one here has heard of it, but has anyone here ever had a Virgin drink before?
No.
A Virgin Cola drink?
Oh.
I'm not surprised because Pepsi and Coca-Cola squatted in like less than 6 months, but they spent all this money diversifying into like Virgin drinks and said they were going to take the world by storm, and they got absolutely crushed to the point where they had to sell off Virgin Mobile to Bell Alliant. They had to sell off Virgin Airways to Alaskan Airways to keep the company from going under. So it's just like, good. I'm kind of glad that you failed because it was arrogant for you to take on something like Coca-Cola or Pepsi. And that's how I feel about Apple getting into this credit card stuff and getting into this streaming service stuff. It's just like, it's like
when they decided to make clothing in the 80s. You remember the Apple clothing?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't.
That's a great point.
It is beautiful.
Oh, that was when they still had the rainbow apple too, I guess, was it?
It was, and talk about fanny packs. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
You have to throw an image of that up there or something for sure. That's going to be...
I'll fish something out, yeah.
Got to have something up there. But I just think that we can get to a point where a company can actually become dangerous. So, for example, here's my main fear I have with Apple in this. Take this credit card. Okay, let's say you rack up $5,000-$6,000 on your credit card and you can't pay it off. What impact is that going to have on your life in terms of like, are they going to start getting into, well, sorry, Grace, you can't upgrade to the latest iPhone because you owe a balance on your Apple card and blah, blah, blah. Until you pay this off, we're not going to allow you to avail of our other services. It's just sneaking into your life too much. It's too insidious for my taste.
It's very invasive.
It's very invasive. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Can a company become a nuisance by growing too large?
Yeah. I do think Apple is one of those examples where they are getting too large because they are kind of losing touch a bit. I don't actually think the credit card's that bad if you looked at it. It has decent cash back. The interest rates are pretty low from what I've heard. Looking at it,
well, they're
the same.
managed by MasterCard too,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like
the same.
MasterCard does the credit check and stuff for it.
Mhm.
I looked into a little bit just because I was sort of intrigued with the idea of like,
yeah.
Go ahead,
Not to
go
cut
ahead.
you
Yeah,
off,
go
but,
ahead.
Like just in the States right now, like they're not really getting on tap too much, and like one of the draws to it is like getting Apple Pay basically used. They're like basically using it to push Apple Pay.
Well, the reason they're doing it is because a lot of the states isn't on board with tap. They always quoted security reasons for it. So Apple,
we saw that. When we were down
saw
there.
that when we went down there. So Apple has just found a way around it with Apple Pay, which is why on the card you get 2% cash back if you use Apple Pay, but 1% cash back if you use the card, and you get 3% cash back if you're buying Apple products.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, the thing is like none of these things are new concepts. I mean, TD's been doing that for years. Scotiabank's been doing that for years. I'm just talking Canadian ones now, but these are not revolutionary ideas, and it's stepping outside your purview. So like, it'd be the equivalent to me if like General Motors started selling, I don't know, hot dogs or something. Like, why would they do that?
Why would they sell sandwiches? It's very
I
strange.
wouldn't mind if they were good. But
Well, the thing is, why would you think would you expect them to be good?
I'd hope so.
I wouldn't. See, I would not expect a truck company to make a good hot dog.
Yeah,
Could
but
be wrong.
IKEA makes furniture, and apparently they have great hot dogs.
They have great
Okay,
meatballs.
well, that's the-
Meatballs are pretty good. Yeah.
Meatballs?
Well, we'll have to find out when you buy it with your Apple card. But we'll try it. We'll try it out and we'll
Thank
see if
you.
it's any
Thank you.
good. I just think that there is an inherent danger there. There's an inherent risk. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's with Apple, it's all about having that lifestyle and having that whole ecosystem that kind of revolves around being the best and being the cleanest and being the coolest. It's why the card is a titanium card. It's not, a little plastic card. It's 'cause they want everyone to know when you bring it out to use it to get that 1% cash back, which they don't want you to do, that, hey, that's an Apple credit card. If they didn't truly care about their branding and care about them getting in there, they wouldn't make a big statement about it looking so different than all the rest of it. Apple, I think, is probably... I mean, I'm not an Apple person other than the iPhone. I love that thing over there. But I do think they're just expanding far too wide. Like, they do not need to get into video games, which now they're into video games with their Arcade Plus system, I think it's called. Now they're going to be being Netflix because they're expanding their Apple TV into actually doing productions and doing television and film. Mm-hmm. Their music is like, why bother? Spotify got them beat by a long shot. Like, why are they even bothering?
I prefer Apple Music too, but
why?
Well, you are their targeted demographic.
Yeah, because you have your iPhone, you have your MacBook. That's really expensive. You've been a Mac person for as long as I can remember.
The thing is, Ham, is that I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong by any means. There's loads of brand loyal people. I mean, that's how people will support Toronto Maple Leafs, even though they haven't won a fucking cup in like 40 years, and they still say they're the best team, right?
Yeah.
But you people like you are the reason why that Apple can slip up and not keep innovating and not keep getting ahead of the rest of the pack.
No, I do agree.
Right? And to me, that's like consumer laziness. And the other big thing that I sort of have with this growing so large is, what would happen if Apple were to fail? Do you think the government would let them fail? Because I don't think they would. They wouldn't let General Motors fail back in 2008 when they deserved to fail, when they put out a bunch of shitty vehicles and basically like got destroyed by Ford and Chrysler.
The Canadian government wouldn't let Bombardier fail either.
No,
right?
exactly.
They wouldn't
let them. And look what Bombardier did with that.
Yeah, and I mean...
Right? Took all the money and stretched it out amongst their top executives.
They're
right?
not even close to the size of like Apple is.
No.
Like Apple was the first $1 trillion private company or whatever. Right?
So this is the thing. Like, this company has grown so large that it could actually devastate the economy if it laid off however many people are working for Apple in the States. I say it's in the thousands and thousands.
Oh, for sure.
So like, is it even fair? It's like, we can just go and do whatever we want. We start making ceiling fans if we want to. And if it doesn't work, oh, well, we'll look for a bailout if we end up going bankrupt or whatever. They won't let them go bankrupt. So it's not really a fair scenario there. I don't know. What are you saying, Grace?
That's the perspective I was kind of thinking. I wasn't thinking so much from the consumer side. I was thinking more from the employees side. And I wasn't thinking, like this multi-million-dollar company becoming a multi-billion-dollar company. I was thinking about more small to medium-sized businesses becoming large companies, because I think that shift for employees is almost more dangerous, because oftentimes in these cases, these small to medium-sized companies, all of a sudden they get big and they get greedy, and the employees are the first people to suffer because they're making all this money, but they don't want to hire more employees to do more work. And so these people are overworked and the quality goes down so fast. And that is a case in which I think about they're getting too big for their own good, because when you said their own good, I was thinking the people in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in just terms of like the people in the company with the Disney Fox acquisition, they're going to control about 40% of like all of film and the box office in the like worldwide. But also when they merge with Fox, 10,000 people are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, we get Marvel and the X-Men together, but was it really worth it for 10,000 people to lose their jobs and maybe never see an Alien movie again? You know, just owning everything,
and
right?
see,
like,
yeah,
why?
we have the same scenario going on up here in Canada with Bell. Like, I hate that company. I can't stand Bell, and it's just because Bell has the arrogance to tell you that we are so big, we don't need to give you the better deal. We don't need to give you this because there are parts of the country that have no other choice, and we have a total monopoly on them, and we're
Same
just
with
going to
Air
make our
Canada.
money there. Yeah, Air Canada. So there's another good question. WOW Airlines. I don't know if anyone was following this. WOW Airlines, gone, instant. Just like shut down. People are stuck all over the world because they went bankrupt and the bank seized the planes, right? Air Canada has gone bankrupt like 18 times in its history. And right, the Canadian government is the largest shareholder for Air Canada. Why?
Yeah.
Why? It's not fair to other companies like as garbage as they are, Provincial Airlines and you know, WestJet and stuff like that. It's not fair. How did this one company get too big for its own britches, you know, for a metaphor there? And now that they're this size, they can basically just dictate to you. I mean, that's what Bell does all the time. Bell is the only company I've ever seen that can fuck up your bill, tell you you have to pay it, and then no matter how in the right you are, in the time it takes for you to get the mistake corrected, they'll already be attacking your credit score and like sending you like final date notices and shutting off your internet. And there was even one case where a guy owed like this massive balance to Bell, and he went and lived with a friend. And they went after the friend's internet and said,
I remember
you
that.
have this person living with you who owes us money, so we're going to shut your internet off until he pays. I mean, that's like mafia stuff, boy. You can't be at that.
Well, that's why when you mentioned like, well, what if you owed a bunch of money on your Apple, you know, on your Apple card, would they be able to say you can't get the next iPhone? And, you know, at first I'm just like, yeah, that's stupid. I mean, that would never happen. But with examples like what you're saying with Bell, it wouldn't be too far off. Like I wouldn't be shocked if I saw something like that, right?
Don't you already need a credit check, or is that just
That's
when you're
through the
getting
carrier,
a brand new
but that's
phone?
through the carrier. You're doing that through the carrier. So like,
okay.
I'm with Kudo, right? So for example, Kudo owned the phone, and I leased the phone through Kudo through a 2-year contract. It has nothing to do with Samsung, right?
Oh, okay.
So right now, your phone has no attachment to Apple whatsoever. If any of you have a contract, it's a contract with your carrier, like Bell or Telus or whatever, right? So imagine now if you're directly like, and I'm not saying you would, but say like if you bought your MacBook, right? Whatever balance you owed on that does not belong to Apple. It belongs to whatever creditor you took the money from, like your credit card or your line of credit or whatever. You're dealing with your bank. Imagine now if you're just dealing with Apple. You bought an Apple product and you finance it with an Apple credit card, who the primary leasee is Apple on it. It's a lot of power. It's a lot of control over your life to give to one person. And to say that they would never be able to deny you services, I think is foolish, because what happens when you stop paying for your stuff? If I stop paying for my truck, Scotiabank's going to show up at the house pretty quick and be like, Josh, where's our money? Okay, where's our truck? You know what I mean? So
yeah, and it's just bad for the consumer all around when these brands get so huge that they don't care anymore about innovation or care anymore about competition. I mean, that's why you need brands of a similar scale to like Apple and a similar scale to, you know, Bell to actually be able to make these people change their ways and make sure that us as the consumers are actually getting great deals on the other end, because a lot of the times I don't think we are. So
no, we're really not. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point what you brought up, Grace, about the smaller companies too, because there's loads of examples of companies here that have arguably got too big for their own good in terms of customer care, right? Like, it's a really silly one. I don't want to shit on them on their birthday, but Mary Brown's turns 50 today. Woo! Yeah, like, yeah. So anyways, the thing is ever since Mary Brown's has gotten larger and larger, they're eliminating more and more fucking deals, like Big Mary Monday, which used to be every Monday.
Shame.
And now you play it off as a once a month deal, Mary. You know what I mean? So it's like, when they were smaller, they were always trying to appease their customers, and they did a pretty good job of it too. I mean, they were always funding little local projects and stuff. But now I think their headquarters actually in like Mississauga or something now, so they've left the Rock for one. But anyways, in terms of that stuff, right? Like you lost that mom and pop shop kind of feel to it, and that's people like that. They like the illusion that you're treating them good when they're buying your shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel for the small businesses as well. I mean, it's a reason why Walmart was never allowed in Goose Bay. It was always, they're going to kill Northmart, they're going to kill Co-op, they're going to kill all these places. And
To be fair, both of those places
deserve to
rip you
die.
off.
they probably deserve
to die.
But I do feel when, you have a big superstore moving in, you get rid of all these small shops or locally owned places. Like, if there were to be like a huge, I don't know, comic book store that opened up that, these don't exist because comic books don't make money. But if one of them opened up in St. John's and eliminated like downtown comics.
You mean like a big, like a McDonald's of comic
comics.
shops.
It would eliminate downtown comics, and it eliminates a lot of these smaller businesses. So yeah, when they get too large, I do think there's a point when they get too large for their own good and for consumers' good as well.
Mm-hmm.
Pam, you haven't said much on this. What do you think?
I don't have much to add now. I'm pretty much in agreement now.
Yeah.
So.
Convinced them.
Convinced you. So you're going to have a
Windows.
Samsung,
Yeah.
and like an Asus laptop as soon as you can, right?
No. I'm gonna stick with my Apple garbage, but
I'm thankful for his Apple garbage because this podcast wouldn't exist without it. So.
Look, it doesn't have anything to do with the quality. The
No.
product is not to say that the product's not good. It's just when you start venturing outside your area of expertise, why would you ever risk letting your iPhones become shitty so that you can start making credit cards or start making little video games?
Yeah.
Like, don't fuck up your bread and butter, right? You want to keep that on the edge. That's just my opinion anyway. Stay at what you're good at.
It's funny that you just said, you're going to switch from Apple and go to Samsung because I was at a conference this weekend, and the guy who was the co-founder of the company that made Siri before Siri was acquired by Apple was there, and he actually went on to create the one that Samsung uses, Bixby or something like
which
that.
is garbage.
Everyone hates it. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. It was the first I'd ever heard of it. But he gave a statistic I thought was very interesting. 70% of households have a Samsung product in them.
Yeah.
Because
TVs probably
they've
mostly.
got TVs, they've got refrigerators, they've got dishwashers, they've got DVD players, they've got
Very
it all.
diversified company.
Very diversified company. So it's funny that you're ragging on Apple.
But they're diversified in the sense of the same way
Technology.
Tesla
All
is.
the
It's all
technology.
electronic, right?
Okay.
So Tesla makes everything from cars to solar shingles, but they're all electrical based, right? So that's a relevant diversification, right?
That's why when Musk was building like the Hyperloop, trying to build it between San Francisco and LA, he made a new company to do that. It's not under Tesla, right? It's the Boring Company is what for drilling
Now,
the hole.
if you want to hit me, with an obtuse angle, Yamaha is a really good example of someone who's very diversified. They make everything from fucking skidoos to pianos.
Yeah, it's
And they
true.
do it well.
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
So now I do think they are sort of split off into Yamaha instruments, right?
Probably.
And then Yamaha motors,
they
small
still have
motors
the
and stuff.
same head company though.
But I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just they didn't sacrifice everything they were good at. And Yamaha is still most famous for its engine products and for stuff like that, right? So, yeah, it's just don't sacrifice what you're good at for...
If you look at their like motorsports logo, it's actually like a tuning fork.
It is a tuning fork, yeah.
Yeah. So like they still reference music.
I'm pretty sure you showed me that one time, and then I was like, that's actually really cool, because that makes me think that's what they started out with as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Right?
know what they started out
Which
with.
is interesting. No, good discussion. I thought that was great. All right, Grace. So let's dance our way into your topic.
All right. Obviously very related to the previous topics. They have all flowed very naturally into one another.
Yeah, make this easy segue now.
So my topic, this is our ridiculous topic for the, I don't know if it's more ridiculous than Shrek. But so my question was, what is the correct way to make Mr. Noodles? Colton is there shaking his head.
No, you're going to go first because I want to hear what you have to say about this topic. How do you make your Mr. Noodles?
So I make my Mr. Noodles according to the instructions on the package. Nobody follows the instructions on the package, and it blows my mind. I don't know how you guys make it, but you take
Go ahead.
2 cups of water, you measure it out, you put it in your... Oh, see, look.
All right.
But
Go
you know what?
ahead.
That's not necessary.
Yeah. Anyways,
Anyways,
go ahead.
So you boil it in a saucepan on the stove. You put your noodles in. You wait till they break apart. You pour your seasoning in. You cook it for like a minute more, and then you eat it. And there's crazy people out there who they drain the broth, all this kind of stuff. And that's quite frankly wrong. So I was wondering how you guys make your Mr. Noodles.
Who do you want to go first?
I mean, I'm not that far off. When I make my Mr. Noodles, no, I don't measure out 2 cups of water to make sure. But a lot of the time, if I'm making it nowadays, which I rarely eat it, but Mr. Noodles, what I'll do now is I'll boil the kettle.
See, you're wrong.
I know, but I'll boil the kettle, which is still boiling water. It's not that strange of a thing.
No, if you're in a rush, that's the way to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Put my noodles in the bowl. I'll pour my water in. It fills up. I'll put a lid on top because that's what one of our buddy's girlfriends back in the day told us how to make it. So I put the lid on top, wait a couple of minutes until they get soft. I pour in my seasoning mix, stir it up. And then I'm not somebody who likes a lot of broth, so I kind of pour out like half the broth. I kind of do half and half, but I mean, it's not that far off. It's not like what you're making is crazy.
There's a mistake.
Different.
There's a mistake in your method. I'm more side with him, right? You don't need 2 cups of water. That'll make no difference. So here's how you make your Mr. Noodles, okay? If you got the time, there's the gourmet way, and then there's the quick and dirty method, okay? So the gourmet way is to go and just fire a bit of water in a pot. Don't matter how much. Could be 18.
Okay, in a pot.
Yeah, it could be swimming pool.
Once it's over top of the noodles, basically. Good amount.
So there you go. So throw her on the stove. Max her out, right? Max her out, right up on bust. Anyways, boil your water. Fire in the sleeve of noodles. Soon as they go soft, okay, drain the water out.
No.
Fire the noodles in the bowl. Take your little carcinogen packet, open her up. Toss her on the noodles, whisk her together so you get a good
dry way.
The good dry concentrate that just like burn the stomach right out of you. Perfect. Now, that's the gourmet way. If you're in a rush, rinse and repeat, but just simply use the kettle method.
Yeah.
Boil the water, whack her in the bowl, stir her up, drain. See, you guys are making like a soup in with your noodles. You don't want that because what do you use for eating your Mr. Noodles? Spoon or fork?
Spoon and fork.
No, that's why.
Yes.
It's not spaghetti.
You use as a fork, okay? You use as a fork for Mr. Noodles. You're not slurping up the broth with a fork, so you get rid of that, get clear of that, dump that out.
You can use a spoon, be like,
what for?
oh. Eat those noodles.
That's how I eat my Thai Express. Oh, when the sriracha hits my lips. But anyways, no, like, just use your fork, pile it in, get it in as fast as you can. Now, the other thing, too, that we forgot is how many packs of noodles are we talking about? Because back in the day, we used to go for the 2-packs.
Yeah, if you're doing the 2-pack, you can't do my method. You have to use the pot, which
That's
I
right.
do the exact same thing Josh is doing with the pot, other than sometimes...
We used to put in 4-packs. One time, there was 2 of us eating.
I know, I remember. But yeah, I mean, I used to leave a little bit of water in the bottom because, like I said, I don't like them too soupy, and it helps the seasoning mix around more rather than just purely dry. Dry, you'll get like concentrated lumps throughout your Mr. Noodles, and you don't want that. You want a nice mix.
Okay, Ham, come on, just blow my mind now. It's gonna be something weird. Like you're gonna have peanut butter on yours or something. Come on with it.
I've had peanut butter. It was like a Thai one, but
disgusting.
No, I'm like pure chaos when it comes to
I'm unsurprised.
Mr. Noodles. One, Mr. Noodles is the inferior one. You have to get Nongshim noodles because they're springier.
That wasn't the question though. It was Mr. Noodles.
What
Is
about
that the one
Co-op
with
Gold?
the 2 packages with the spicy stuff in it, and it looks like a diaper bag?
What?
There's like a diaper bag one, but like it's just like another brand of like cheap noodles, but it's like more bougie, I guess. I don't know. But even if it's just Mr. Noodles, I boil the water.
Wait, how do you boil the water? On the stove or in a kettle?
Either or, I don't care.
Boil the water. It doesn't matter how it's done. If the
true.
water is boiled,
That's right.
good.
100 degrees.
Sometimes I do both.
No, because
You can boil the
if you
water in a
boil it-
pot and pour it or in the thing and then pour it into a pot.
Then you
Did you
pour-
hear this over here? This contrary over here. Sometimes I do both. Big ol' smile on his face, like you just.
But see, if you boil it in the kettle and then pour it into a bowl, it is no longer boiling to cook the noodles in.
All right, what if you boil the water in a kettle and pour it into a pot? It doesn't matter. Put the lid on. It's the same thing.
But it's not, because
It
it's
is.
not continuing to boil as the noodles are in there. That's the difference.
I think on the packaging, it tells you to turn it off once you put the noodles in.
But it's still on the heat. That's the difference.
Oh,
It is. Sorry, you can continue.
I think it tells you to turn off the heat. But anyways,
Can't
boil the noodles. With
So
the
what
sauce in
what
there.
stage do you start
That's
putting?
madness.
What stage do you start putting the peanut butter in? Ham, come on, let's fast forward.
You can't put the sauce in. You can't put the sauce in, but yeah. No, I usually throw a bit of little miso paste in there. You know,
What?
that's good. That's
Some
good.
what?
A little bit of salt.
Miso paste.
What is that?
Soybean paste.
Yeah, it tastes good.
My son, where were you reared up?
There's no way you did that when you made Mr. Noodles back when you were 12.
Back when I was 12.
The most you put in Mr. Noodles back home was a fork. That was it. There wasn't no miso paste.
I'll actually go back to how I made them when I was like 12. If you want to get like that specific,
Historical.
Yes, please.
if you want to get historical,
Nostalgic.
I put her on the stove. I boil the kettle. Throw that in.
That's right. Yeah.
I would actually turn on the heat, so I'm like just completely off base here to you guys.
Well, you put wait, hold on. Now you put a square of noodles down in cold water.
no.
What? How'd you turn
water.
on the heat on step 3?
I boil the kettle.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that part. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Pour that over the noodles, and get that going. You know, and as I'm doing that, I see whatever's in my fridge. Throw that shit in there.
What do you mean?
frozen
Whatever's in the
veggies.
ginger ale? Like what else
Could
is in
be,
the
man.
fridge?
Could be. I just find some veggies, and then I'd. This is something my dad used to do. He used to like, scramble some eggs, and he'd like pour that down
Like
in
egg
there,
drop
like-
soup style.
Yeah, and you mix that around, and then it didn't really matter when I put the like little like salt packet in, but that's got to go in, obviously. So that's the soupy way. But everyone's had the dry way when they're like, I need something.
The potent concentration.
So
yes.
we can all agree that that is the wrong way. Like hands down, that is the wrong way to make them.
That's right. Yeah.
That is nowhere found on the package.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
I'm not letting that package dictate my life.
That's right, Pam. You
I
break
love
through the
rules.
boundaries.
I'm always going to follow the rules.
Well, before we started, we talked about the craft peanut butter cookies thing, right?
That recipe that
Do you have
exists
to
on
follow
there.
those by that logic?
Well, see, the difference
Bacon's
is
different.
you're just choosing to use a different recipe. You know what I mean?
Well, that's all
Like,
I'm doing with the noodles is choosing a different recipe.
No, but
We're
you're
still
not following
boiling,
the recipe.
but we're still boiling the water in a kettle. It doesn't make a difference. It's still boiled water, molecularly, however the hell you pronounce it. It's still the same.
But okay, just think logically. You
Also,
have
it says
bowl-
saucepan. So is it? What is it? Is it like
a pot.
A
That's
pot?
what a saucepan is.
All
yeah.
right. Well, we call that
See,
a
why
pot.
don't they
It's an
speak in
American thing to call
plain
it a saucepan.
plain English, right? Just like pot. Everyone would know.
They're
right away.
35 cents a package. They should not
That's
be
right.
fancy. Say throw it in the
22
pot.
if you want to go with the compliments brand. But anyways,
But if you have a bowl that is at room temperature and you pour boiling water into it, the temperature of the water will drop.
And that's why you put the lid on top of the bowl. You take another plate and drape it over the bowl. A
That's right.
crucial step.
or a piece of paper
Keep it
towel.
all in there.
Piece of paper towel.
madness.
No.
Yeah, you're
Paper
basically just
towel.
making it.
Hey,
That's
put
not
it-
going to
You're
keep
making
any
it like
Yeah,
the,
you do,
the
but-
cup noodles, basically.
I had an Asian woman show me how to make it back when we were 16, and
Yeah,
it was the
she's
best
from Hong
way.
Kong. She definitely knows.
It was the best way. She showed me how to make it. Never steered me wrong since. It's been perfect. So I don't know.
No way.
No.
I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree. Hopefully, this won't prevent us from coming back for episode 8. It might.
I say this is it now.
But yeah, you thought that this would be, a simple topic. You said there's only one way to make it. I've known people to boil
Okay.
the noodles, strain out all the liquid, and put Kraft Singles slices over top.
Yeah,
my
but like
fuck.
Madness.
That's
that
delicious.
is not that's nowhere found on the packaging. I mean, like
I know.
we're all pretty much the same. We're all boiling water. We're all putting noodles in a bowl at the end of the day.
What
We're
about
not-
eating them dry?
I mean, I've done that too, but that was not the
a
normal.
guy
way to
we
make
went
them.
to school used to eat them in class. He used to bust them apart and have a little lick at his noodles from time to time when he was bored.
What a sentence.
It's true. Yeah, he liked it though.
But anyways, I think that does it for us this week. If you enjoy the show, make sure to like and subscribe, share it with your friends. And if you're feeling generous, you can always support us on patreon.com/yourlastpodcast. So we're Your Last Podcast. I'm Colton.
I'm Josh.
I'm Grace.
Shrek is love. Shrek is life.
Mike Myers.
So we'll be back with a new episode next week and every week thereafter until our last. So thank you for watching.
See you later.
Thank you.
Adios.